Right then, so we're going to go through now the bits and pieces that are in the Pondip box and how we use them to tie up a surface floating rig using everything that's in the box. So basically start with your mainline floater line. As I said, you can use anything, any of the sort of commercially available floater lines out there. This is a £10 floater line, so absolutely perfect on a small reel and a light setup. So what we do first of all, get one of the stops, the old float stops, simply just slide that up the line. What this is going to allow is obviously the float to have movement up and down as you cast it out, and obviously when the fish takes, it's obviously something to stop a bit of resistance on the line. Next then, take our surface float, and say it's a nice yellow top. Generally when the sun's out it casts a darker shadow on the water and the yellow does really shine out. As you can see, that's stopped then by that back bead. Next, take another bead, one of the float stops, and zip that on the line. And now you've got a captive float. The idea is obviously to keep it all away from the setup, away from your hook, so it acts as a float, but obviously is maintained a safe distance away. Next thing what I've done then is using a commercially available floater, zig link, anything like that, tied a length, normally looking about 6 foot in length. I've obviously tied this a bit shorter for the film. Simply then Palomar knot on, swivel to one end, then have your floating link. Great tip with your floating link, if you rub a bit of the wax from your nose and give it a rub along, it'll actually make it sit up in the surface foam. So just a little edge, or yet again you can buy a line greaser. Then I've taken one of the size 10 hooks, and so the inturned point on this works perfectly with a surface bait, because basically it's always dropped in the water, so when the fish comes up and picks it, it's going to prick them in the bottom lip. And then what I've got then, taking a bit of the crystalline doppelganger paste, moulded it into a shape similar to what I'm going to be feeding. Yet again, because it's a floating, that'll actually pull to the surface, and with your line obviously floating as well, it'll leave a surface film, and that'll actually sit up in that. Deadly for the fish, because as they come along they see that bait first. Great thing with this as well, it's impregnated with halibut pellet smell, so yet again it's going to give off the same sort of aromas that's coming off your mixers. So that length, as I said, normally 6 foot. What we do then is we take that and we tie it off to our line. Again, different knot there, it's the half blood knot, and that ties nice to swivel, and then trim that edge off. And that then means your surface float then, captive between the two beads, you can move that slightly further down to the link, or indeed move it right down on top of it. What will happen then is obviously as you cast that out, the weight of the float will go out, and then your link cast alongside it. So basically it's not going to spook off the fish. The best thing to do with these is cast over the fish you're feeding with the pellet or with the biscuits, and then slowly drag it over the top of them. What that means then is they won't actually spook off the actual splash, and you can actually drag it right into the feeding fish. I mean, when you really get them in a frenzy, it'll actually allow you to pull baits away from some of the fish you don't want to catch perhaps. But as I said, yet again, the Pondip box, a really useful box. Everything ties in line. There are other bits and pieces. Like I said, we've got the imitation dog biscuits. You can use these to great effect. Put a split shot in the bottom as well and they spin over. So your hook can actually face upwards so the fish actually catches a top lip grab there. So there we are. That's all that you need from the Pondip box on how to tie some surface floater gear.